Hello and welcome to Truth Proof. Some of you may remember that a few weeks ago we had an incredible guest on in Matt Emch when he told us this absolutely amazing story that, quite honestly, if it didn't frighten you and send chills to your bones, then nothing will. Well, as a special treat for us today, we've got Matt back on to share some of his stories of the strange and unusual. Well, stories, experiences. So, without further ado, Matt, welcome to Truth Proof.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me again, Paul. It's an honor, sir.
Oh, you're so welcome. After, I don't know what date it was just a few weeks ago that you came on. I got so many messages, private messages. I got a couple of emails as well, just saying how much that you touched them with your sincerity and the actual, you touched something in people with that account, because it's very rare to get something as graphic and terrifying as what you told us. And although you might just you don't even have to skim through the surface of it today, but what you experienced, it's so real. And the way that you painted that experience, other people were living it with you. And when you told me, Matt, when you told me that you'd got a few more strange experiences to share, I couldn't wait to ask you back on. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm honored that I was able to take some people with me. I've had people reach out to me as well, people from your neck of the woods, across the pond, so to speak, that have really, touched me and have been supporting me. And it's so phenomenal to have people from all over the world that have gotten in contact with me. And, if I can, be able to bring people with me back when I think of that memory, then even as disturbing as it was to us when it happened, then I'm happy I can, and I'm glad that it resonated with people.
Resonated. That is the word. It certainly resonated. And for some people, I mean, one of our witnesses in Wolflands, it helped him. It's all, and I'm sure over the years, Matt, when you're searching for the answers like we're all doing, you've heard people's accounts and thought, I can relate to that because I've had that experience myself. So, but you touched on, when we spoke privately the other week, you touched on the fact that you'd got a few more things to share. And would you like to relate a few of them today with us?
For sure. Actually, another thing that has happened to me just happened this past spring. So I had never been to a conference for anything cryptid, Bigfoot, Dogman, anything. It was, I had met a gentleman named Ernie Davio, who was a very good friend of mine that I'm going to get you in touch with, because as you and I have discussed before, having something real happen to you makes you very skeptical of things when you hear it. It's a lot easier for someone that's had an experience when you hear someone telling you something that you can sniff it out. And Ernie Davio has had one of the most incredible Bigfoot experiences, in my opinion, that I've ever heard. And he, strangely enough, I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around the irony of this. There's a lot of people that fully believe in Sasquatch or Sabe, whatever name you want to give them. And some of them cannot accept the fact that there are other things out there. So there's a sect that refuse to believe that dogmen can exist. And I find that very ironic and humorous that you believe in Sasquatch, but you can't believe in something else like that can exist. So Ernie was part of that sect that I don't really believe in. He heard my experience and he reached out to me and he told me, I want you to know that I fully believe you 100%. And I didn't believe in dogmen until I heard your experience. Well, him and I have gotten extremely close. He's a very good friend of mine. And we are part of this newer generation, if you will, of people that are finally starting to bring together these different groups or sects of cryptid experiencers that when you have it to yourself, I don't know why you would just say, oh, well, that's all that exists. Nothing else has the possibility. So long story short, we had never met in person. He lives in Ohio where I do, but he lives in the southern part of Ohio, hours from me. So he had said, hey, I'm going to be coming up in your area. There was a Bigfoot conference in East Liverpool, Ohio, which is about 40 minutes from Youngstown, in Beaver Creek State Park. And he said, you know, I'd love to meet you. My wife, Lois is going to come, and our dog Tilly, and we'd love to meet you and in person. So I drove, it's only 40 minutes, and I went and met them. And I think it was called the Friends of Beaver Creek State Park Bigfoot Conference or something. You can look it up online. They're going to have it again. I was asked to speak at it this year. Jack Warren is the guy that puts it on. So we had dinner. I met them and they're like, hey, would you like to come back? It's the night before this conference. There's a real out of the way, middle of nowhere campsite that no one really knows about, that all of the people that are speaking, and Ernie was speaking at this conference, are hanging out. Would you like to come and meet everyone? Sure. I mean, I'm 40 minutes from home. Let's go. And it was hard for us to find it. And Ernie had been there once and he's like, I'm not real sure how to get back. It was not easy. Now, if you look up Beaver Creek State Park on Google, you're going to find a load of supernatural, paranormal, and Bigfoot specifically type events that have happened in Beaver Creek State Park. I was just on Dr. Russ Jones' show the other day, and him and his partner Brad were talking with me about Beaver Creek State Park, that they really know it well. And they have had immense activity with Bigfoot there. Brad had been bluff charged from a Bigfoot. He has 45 minutes that I liken to Ron Moorhead's Sierra sounds. There is very similar sounds of whoops and all kinds of other sounds. I don't believe there was any samurai chatter that they call it, but man, I'm going to tell you what, there's really no other explanation for what you're listening to than what you hear on the Sierra Sounds recordings. It's the same thing. So I did not know it was so heavily regularly visited by Bigfoot. So I went to this campsite that I've been told, that I've asked, hey, what's the name of that campsite? And they said, there really isn't a name for it. It's just a general campsite. Beautiful. You pull into this one area and I'll give you pictures to put up for it. And it has a lake off to the side or a stream. And then you have to, when you get out of the car in the parking lot, you have to kind of walk up a trail and then you enter open into this campsite area, which is just very, rugged. It's just grass and trees. And they had tents set up in a couple tables and I met everyone, and I had never met one of these people in my life. Now I get approached within 5 minutes by this gentleman who grabs my arm. Now, granted, I've told you before, I'm from Youngstown, Ohio, in the area I grew up in. You don't grab some guy's arm. Yeah, so he grabs my arm and I'm like, whoa, hey, can I help you? Slow your roll there, buddy. He said, I'm sorry, I apologize. My name is Johnny Freeman, and you can look him up on Facebook. His name's Johnny Freeman. He's a psychic. He said, I'm a psychic. And, right away, I don't know anyone like that at that point. And so I'm okay. What can I help you with? And he said, I just want you to know, I've never seen anyone with an aura like you before. He said, I have to come up to you and talk to you. He said, I don't know if anyone's told you yet, but there's a trail. And he pointed and we looked. He said, and up that trail, it's a long trail. And he said, there's supposedly a portal up at the top that Sasquatch and other paranormal beings utilize regularly. And people have had massive accounts of supernatural activity up there. Something is telling me that you need to go up there by yourself. Now, I laughed because I had just had my left knee replaced about a month and a half before that. So I was on just one crutch. When my wife found out what happened, she was not happy. Why were you on one crutch? I also had probably spoken about in our last interview, I unfortunately last April had lost my right leg below the knee. I'd had 10 surgeries since then, some difficulties. So I pulled up my leg and I'm like, I got a prosthetic here. I had my left knee. I'm not going up any trail. He said, hey, I'm just telling you, this is what I'm being told. The powers that be are speaking to me loudly. You do with it what you want to do. I'm just letting you know. Nice to meet you. And I stewed on this, of course, with what happened to me when I was 14. And I've had more things that have occurred over the years, little things, just constant. And I thought about it for probably 15, 20 minutes. And I said, to hell with it. I'm going. And I went. Yeah, I went. And I told my friend Ernie, I said, Ernie, I said, this is what that guy over there told me. He said, oh, yeah, Johnny, I met him earlier. He told me this. He goes, okay. I said, I'm going. He goes, Matt, are you sure that you can do that? And he said, that doesn't look real safe. I said, I'm going. He said, okay, if you need me, call me. I'll be there. So I went and I started my trek. And I'm going to tell you what, this was not an easy thing to do for me. I don't think anybody, just even in generally good shape, would have an easy time making it up this trail. I mean, there were some points that it was really angled, and I was, really in pain just standing around.
And it's new ground, it's new terrain. Yeah. So, and I take it within the dark, Matt.
Oh, I don't think I wouldn't have done it in the dark, because when I say this was a sketchy trail, Paul, it was sketchy. There were points that it was only a few feet wide.
Really?
As you went higher, you had, and again, I have pictures I'll give you. There was a stream to my left going up that, I kept looking at. And as the higher you got, the farther you got from it. And if you fell down this area, you would have got really hurt, or even worse at the top. So there were points that I had to stop. I even had to put my crutch down, and I had to get almost on all fours and make certain areas. I had to pull on trees. It took me roughly 30 to 45 minutes to get to the top of this trail. And I was hurting. I was hurting. I was soaking wet. And there was an area, and again, I have a picture of this, the last leg of it, I refused to go because it was literally this wide, and it was a rock outcropping, and I would have had to put my back against it and
just work your way around.
Not on a crutch with a prosthetic and a knee that was just replaced. So just beyond that was this portal that I was told about. So I grabbed onto a tree and I kind of leaned out as far as I could to look, and I could see something. There was some strange kind of rock formation. So right at the area where I couldn't go any further, there was a tree that had fallen. In fact, on the way up, which strangely enough happened, I grabbed onto a tree to help me push off, and the tree fell. It was so rotted, it fell, and it was so loud. If you ever talk to Ernie, which again, you should, he can tell you, they all heard this tree fall, and thankfully it fell towards the stream, because it sounded like a house came down. And they thought I had fallen down, and he started running up the trail and screamed to me, Matt, are you okay? And I yelled, I'm fine. It's okay. So that scared the hell out of them. And I made it up there, and I sat down, and I even took my prosthetic off from my leg, and I was sweating, took my hat off. It took me 20 minutes to get myself together. Finally, I had stopped panting and everything, and I just started talking out loud. I didn't know what to do. I just started talking out loud, and I said, I'm here. I'm your friend. I mean you no harm. I'm your brother. Please show yourself to me. I come, just as a gentle soul, just wanting to meet you. And nothing was really happening, and it was getting dark, by the way, on the way up. So as I'm going up higher, the thought is, I have to go back down.
You got to get back down.
It's going to be scary going down, because it's going to be angled. So I'll be forcing myself to slow down, using more muscles, and then it's getting dark. So even
placing stress on the new knee.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh crap, it's getting dark. It was already darker because the woods were so thick anyway, even though it was light out. So I start to make the decision, I'm gonna have to go. I have to go. So I decide before I go, I say, you know what, I'm going to do what I see on all these ghost shows and everything. And I take my phone out and I have like everyone else, a recording feature. And I said, let me give it a shot. I'll do an EVP. It's my first of my life. And I started talking, and I gave you guys a copy of it, which I'm sure you'll put in this episode. And
you did. Thank you.
It's incredible, and what happens can only be described. And I did not hear it with my own ears. What I did after I spoke, I stopped it and I immediately played it back. And I even have it. If you want me to, Paul, I could even try and play it through the computer for you. I've done it for a few other people. And
please do.
It seems to work. So I'm going to do that for you. Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods.
Wow.
Say anything to tell me you're here. What's your name? Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there? Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods. Do you want to say anything to tell me you're here? What's your name? Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there? Is there anyone out here with me? Thank you for allowing me to be in your home, in your woods. Do you want to say anything to tell me you're here? What's your name? Is there anyone here, and how many of you are there? Now, I did not hear any of that with my own ears. None of it. Not the wood knocks, and especially not that grunt. Because
there's a vocalization. That doesn't sound like it comes from you. I've never heard that.
No,
I know you've sent this to Les, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, and you know, it was shocking. I was blown away, and I immediately, even with no crutch, I stood right up, and I was, thank you so much. I was like, I have goosebumps right now. I just was thanking whatever did it. I'm looking around, looking for the sign of anything around me, and there was nothing. And what I left out is right before I did that EVP, and when I was deciding to leave, it got really quiet again. That everything,
the lower silence.
Now I was in the middle of the woods. You hear crickets, you hear birds, you have whatever animals are going through the brush. Everything went silent except for the stream. That was the only thing I could hear. And I was like, okay, let's try this EVP. So I mean, it's so obvious. Anyone that hears it, you can tell that's not me. I didn't make that sound. And, I've had a lot of people listen to it. The one most notable, in my opinion, is Mr. Ron Moorhead, who will tell you, I went to the second annual Dogman Cryptid Conference in Dallas, Fort Worth this past September from Paranormal Roundtable. Josh Turner put that on. And I was on the Dogman panel there. I'm in his new book. He asked me to come down to the conference, and I'm glad I did, because I met so many people, Adam Davies, Ron Moorhead, and many, many more. And I played that from Ron Moorhead specifically when I met him. I said, sir, would you mind if I play something for you? And he did. And I played it once, and he said, play that again. And I played it for him, and he listened to it for a third time. And then he looked at me, and I said, what do you think? He goes, you got something there, man. And to have somebody like Ron Moorhead, put his stamp on that was really strong for me. I mean, I've never seen a Sasquatch. I hope I see one someday.
It helps validate what you're saying when you've got somebody, let's say, to the stature of Ron Moorhead.
Yeah. for sure.
Listening to what you've recorded. And what a small world, because I was asked to speak at that conference and we'd have met.
Oh, were you really? Oh,
I was. And I didn't know
you.
Yeah, and I didn't know that you'd added anything to Josh's book, because I've written something for the book for him as well. So we both in the book.
Yes, well, that's awesome to know. I'll have to have you sign it someday.
Yeah, it's fabulous. But honestly, that's brilliant, and so kind of you to share that with us, and obviously at some point maybe Les can slot that in so that we get a little bit more out of that.
That's not all that happened that weekend.
Oh, far away.
Yeah. So the next day I went to that conference, and it was very nice, and I got to hear my friend speak. And after that, I went to head home, and I came to a stop sign where I could either turn left to go to the highway to go home, or I could turn right to go back to that campsite if I could find it. So I decided I'm going back, and I went back, and it took me a little while. I found the spot, and I went, and there was no one else there. It was completely deserted. And one other thing I want to add into this, and all of this can be corroborated by Ernie Davio and Johnny Freeman. The night that happened, I had went to my car after I came down, and I had went to show my friend Ernie Davio that recording. He was talking to someone, so I didn't bother him. I went up to Johnny Freeman. I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. And I grabbed him, and he tells a funny story. He's like, Matt's a big guy. He grabbed me. He said he almost pulled me off my feet. He even was on a crutch. And I was shook up, and I was all fired up. And I said, listen to this. And I played it for him, and he looked at me. He said, I told you something was going to happen. Something was telling me. He says, that doesn't surprise me. He said, that's incredible. So I went to my car because I was really hurt, and I had to change my shirt. I actually had another shirt in there. And they had told me that I didn't know that they were all surrounded by more lightning bugs than they had ever seen in their life. Well, I had gotten out of the car, and I went and I walked over to this stream, and I talked to my wife, and I told her what happened. And she's like, oh my God, are you serious? My wife's a big skeptic, but when she heard it, she even was like, whoa, what is that? I'm talking to her, and as I'm on the phone by this stream, I was literally surrounded by, there had to be millions of lightning bugs. I have never seen more lightning bugs in my life. They were lighting up the night, and I was in awe. I was like, you should see all these lightning bugs. I had my wife on the phone. I can't believe all these lightning bugs. I've never seen anything like this. What they told me had happened is when I said I was going to my car and I left, they said that they had seen these lightning bugs that come around. And when I left and I went to my car, they said they left. And I told them what happened. I said, hey guys, I just came from the stream. There were all these millions of lightning bugs. And they all looked at each other. They're like, Matt, when you left, they were here and they followed you. So I don't know what went on. It is very...
Just for people in the UK like myself and everyone else, I'm kind of getting the impression that these bugs glow, but just give us a brief description of the lightning bug.
Sure. What lightning bugs are is they're just they don't bite, they're just tons of people love to catch them. If you look them up, they have the ability of bioluminescing,
self-illuminating. You're right.
So they're underneath on their belly. They have this area towards the back on their abdomen that will let out a yellowish green glow, and that's how they talk to each other. And summer nights, you'll see in your backyard, some nights there'll be more, some nights there won't be. But you can see them, and it's a beautiful thing. They're really sweet, and a lot of kids in America, what they do, so I remember doing it when I was a kid, it's catching lightning bugs and putting them in a jar, and they're all glowing in there. And
I see.
So it's a big thing. If you look it up, they have I forget the other names for them, but that's what we know them by as lightning bugs.
But Matt, to get thousands and upon thousands of them around you is quite
rare,
unusual. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. In fact, all of the other people that were there all had said we've never seen anything like that before.
So you've had this experience, Matt. You've gone up this difficult trail to try and not access, but try and get some kind of experience with the portal that they suggest is there. Are you 20 to 40 minutes away from this location? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it took me roughly 30 to 45 minutes to get to the top of
How
this
far
trail.
is it from your home, though?
Oh, it's 40 minutes from my house.
40 minutes.
Yeah.
So sure, if I'm just talking about Paul Sinclair here, you've had an experience there. It doesn't sound like it was a bad experience.
No.
So you must be planning to go back, are you?
Oh, for sure. 100%. Yeah. Not only was I asked to speak at this conference again, I am going to go back by myself 100%. Now, there has been other accounts of other things. If you, again, please, everybody Google it, look it up, and you will see all of the different paranormal types of things. They have old locks from like
Beaver
water
Creek,
locks.
this is the place, Beaver Creek.
Yes,
Yep.
Beaver Creek State Park in East Liverpool, Ohio. And they have old locks that used to be water locks that they have paranormal things happen at. They're supposed to be spectral beings that are seen. I haven't seen them. But as I said, the next day I went back and I made it. I took a deep breath and I said, here we go again. And I went up this trail. Now, before I left, I had stopped, and I even have a picture I'll give you guys of this beautiful little gift shop they had in the park at the spot they did the conference. I bought 4 arrowheads, and I grabbed different colors of different sizes, and my favorite color is black, and I grabbed a big black one, and I took it in regards to giving them as gifts to whatever was there. So as I went up the trail, I would speak out loud and say, I'm leaving this for you, excuse me, for what you did for me yesterday. This is for you, your family, your children. And I left them in spots that no person would ever just happen upon them. Something would have to be watching me to see it, or to be able to smell it or see something. So I left 3, and I saved my favorite, the big black one, till last. And I made it to the top, and I was hurting again. And I happened to glance to my right, and there was off trail in the center of this wooded area. I saw like sunbeams, excuse me, glowing down. So, when you see spots that open in the clouds, that's what I likened it to. I said, I'm going to go over there. There were trees that had fallen and whatnot. And I made it my way over there, and I sat down, and we have a park near us in Youngstown called Mill Creek Park, where I frequented my whole life. I still do. In fact, I just did a documentary for someone the other day that I'm going to be in. David Wolf from ETS, or Exposing the Strange, is going to do a Wolfman documentary. Not Wolfman, I'm sorry, Dogman documentary with me in it. And I had never seen ferns growing out of the ground before. Ironically, when I did this documentary the other day at Mill Creek Park, lo and behold, right behind him as he's setting up were ferns growing.
The ferns, yeah.
So there's ferns growing out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just never noticed them before. So I grabbed the biggest, most beautiful leaf I could find. There was a tree laying down, and I have an actual picture. I put the fern down, and I take this arrowhead and I put it on top of the fern, and I speak out loud, this is my favorite. I want you to have it. It's my gift to you and your family for what you gave me yesterday. Thank you. And I sit down, I set my crutch down, and I was there maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. In fact, I silenced my phone, but my wife's messaging me. We have this thing called, what's it called? Family 360 or something. The family knows where they all are. She's like, what are you doing? I see you're in the middle of that park. What are you doing? I said, I'm doing something. I'll be home in a little bit. So I was there roughly, I would say 45 minutes to an hour, and speaking out loud, just trying to just commune with nature, just make my presence known and just relax. And I'm chilling out, and every once in a while I say something. And then after 45 minutes, I get that feeling, okay, nothing's going to happen here. And so I'm getting ready to go. And just as I'm getting ready to decide to leave, it gets quiet again. And it got deathly quiet. I went, oh boy, here we go. Maybe this is it.
No fear.
So,
No fear.
I was not in fear. I felt no dread, no scary feelings, nothing like what happened to me when I was 14. And I even closed my eyes because I've heard so many accounts of people doing, they call it mind speak with cryptids and beings and Bigfoot. And I closed my eyes, and I probably did this for 10 minutes. I never opened my eyes, and I was speaking out of my head, hoping something would answer me, and nothing did. But as I hear how quiet it is, I'm preparing myself. If you open your eyes and there's something there, just do your best, Matt. Don't freak out. Just be ready for something to be standing there. And I fully expected and hoped something would be there. And I even, like, my heart started beating fast. And I opened my eyes and I'm like, damn, nothing there. So I said, okay, well, thank you for what you gave me. I really appreciate everything. I said, I am forever your brother. I said, I will always be, part of your pack, or however you want to look at it. And I reached down and grabbed my crutch, and between my feet was a feather, a huge feather that I immediately snapped it. A huge feather this long, which I have since found out it's an eagle feather, which in America, I found out from people, you're not allowed to take them. So I didn't take it. So I left it there. Yeah. And I saw it, and I was in awe, because there's no way I wouldn't have noticed this there. I would have stepped on it. And as I walk, it was very uneven. I'm walking on tons of brush, and this was not
nothing.
Yeah, I would have seen it. I was watching where I was walking. It was like someone had placed it between my feet.
Yeah, that's what I meant. And you would have heard if anything would have approached.
Right. Nothing. New.
Well,
nothing.
Let's assume that the Bigfoot, the Sasquatch, the Sabe has gifted you that.
I found out there's a lot of meaning.
Yeah, the metaphysical. It's got to you without making a sound. It's quite spectacular. And is that what you believe as well, Matt?
It is. And there was one other thing that I have a picture of. I had noticed when I sat down, there was this little, I don't know. I don't even know what it is. Maybe somebody knows what it is when they see the picture. It's just this little tiny vegetation growth that was on the ground. It had a few leaves on it, and I brushed off every one of them except for one little one, I think. I was like, that's interesting. And when I brushed it off, like, this puff of something came off of it, and I was like, that's strange. So I had also noticed when I was looking around on the ground after I picked the feather up, that there was this tiny little, easiest way to describe it as a lime green little gourd, tiny little that I would have 100% seen something like that. And it was like it was broken off of something. It's not like it didn't grow from this. And I was like blown away. I was like, what the heck is that? So I grabbed it. And again, I just, for 5 minutes, thanked and said, and I felt so honored. And I never heard a thing.
So, taking from what you've just said, do you think that it's the mindset of the individual going to these locations that dictates the experience that the individual is going to have? Because all you seem to take from this is good, and there was no negative.
No.
Do you think someone else could go into that area? Let's just say, not with a gun necessarily, saying I'm going to shoot it, but a hunter who talks about, well, if anything ever crossed my path like that, I would shoot it. Do you think these things know the intent of the individual?
I do. I think that they are capable of sensing the inner soul, if you will, of a person, and the reason that they're there. And I think that for whatever reason, they saw me as someone that was there for nothing but positive engagement, and that, as I said, meant no harm, and wanted to have something happen. And, you and I have spoken before about that veil that we talk about that separates us, that paper thin, invisible sheath that separates us from these other worlds. And they are able to somehow go through them or move through the woods so quietly that no one can hear them. Something left those there. They were not there when I was there. I heard no noise, no leaves, sticks breaking, nothing. So yeah, I believe your attitude has an effect. You get some people that go in, like you had just said, hunters with in their subconscious. I see when I'm taking a shot at it and they get bluff charged or they get ran out of the area. I definitely think that affects the experience.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously, I'm just speculating because we have those kind of heightened senses, but not to that degree. And you'll know exactly what I mean now. You can walk into a bar, and you'll know if anybody, without even speaking, has got a little bit of bad intent towards Matt.
Yes,
even if they don't know you, you feel it, don't you? You can feel that set of eyes on you. You can feel that mood.
I do.
These things might be sort of ultra aware of everything. They must be.
Well, you think about that these areas are basically, aside from wherever they come from originally, and if that is the area they come from originally, I think a lot of them utilize underground cave systems. That's why we don't find them. I think they bury their dead. I think they take their dead. People say, well, why haven't we found bodies? Well, I think they take their dead. Or like what I saw when I was 14, some things can blink in and out. Or as the priest I sought help from said, Matthew, sometimes these things bleed into our realm and they see us and we see them. They frequent these areas. They are hanging out in that's their neck of the woods, so to speak. They know that area.
How do you think, where does the type of experience that you had when you were 14 fit with the Bigfoot, the Sabe? Do the two actually coincide alongside each other, or is it just? I'll end in a moment because I want your answer on this, obviously. Or is it just the same science that's being employed? And I'm not saying that they're using science, but the same kind of exotic science that's allowing them both to come through into our sphere of existence, but never the two meet. Do you think?
Yeah. I do think there's a correlation there. You hear so many people that, people get termed sensitives, or people that have more events happen to them. And for whatever reason, I have been one of those my entire life. I have family members that it has touched on my mother's side, which my mother was 100% Lebanese, and that Arabic side of my family. I'm half Lebanese, half German, Irish, and that's the side of the family that I've heard numerous stories. I have cousins that have had experiences with more along the lines of like supernatural ghost types of things. Yeah, I think it travels in families. I think those two are connected. In fact, speaking of Martin Groves, one of the most amazing, incredible dogman stories you've ever heard, there's also Sasquatch in that experience. When him and his partner are leaving the campsite, when they're being chased to be murdered by a group of dogmen, when they turn the lights on their truck, it hits a cornfield across the way. And Martin Groves says, I saw two of the ugliest creatures I've ever seen, which he found out were Sasquatch. I think they were the Gugway, which are called face eaters, which are supposedly the most violent ones towards humans. It seemed to him, and I've heard this more than once from people like police and researchers, that more times than not, they have heard. Now, they have found that there have been times that people have seen them clash, but it almost seems that the Sasquatch used them almost like hunting dogs, and that they were controlling them and having them do it. And he said that the one Sasquatch dropped down on all fours into that spider crawl you've heard, I'm sure, before people talk about. And then the one big, he said it was like an alpha, was gigantic, and it was looking right at him in his eyes, giving him the most evil, angry, hateful look, like it was mad that they got away. So, I think there's a connection between the two. I think just some people might have that frequency that I discuss a lot, that, everything has a frequency. Sometimes ours match theirs and we're able to coexist in the same areas. Doesn't always go well, but they are definitely connected.
And Matt, have you heard any people speak about taking not the residue as in substance, but the essence of the experience back home with them? Like we'd listen to Skinwalker Ranch and they talk about the attachments, the hitchhiker effect.
Yes.
Have you any experience of anything like that? Strange things have happened in the home. I know this is fairly recent, this experience on the side of that trail, but is there anything like that happened that you can recall?
The one thing that I haven't, what, it's funny you bring that up. My wife recently said to me, Matt, if you bring something here, I will never forgive you. I had, and I think I touched on it in our last interview, the dream that I had, that ultra realistic dream where the creature that attacked us when I was 14 was at my home. In my dream, as I've said before, normally when you have dreams and in your dream, you're at home, but it's not your house. I was at home. It was my backyard where we have woods. In fact, we have woods behind the house and a chain link fence. And long story short, I was attacked by the same creature that I saw, the exact, every single same thing. And it had told me when it crawled on top of me and put its head an inch away from mine, and I expected to get bit. It did mind speak to me. And it told me that it was there for me specifically when I was 14. I was there for you all those years ago. You speak of me too much and I will see you again. So it threatened me in a manner. So I don't know if that was something bringing it home, but I have definitely heard of many occurrences of people being attached, bringing that home with them.
And how does that make you feel? Potentially, at 50-50, it's a dream, but there's still the element that it's a little bit too close for comfort out, and there's that. It's out there. If we're to believe Matt's story, and I do, if we're to believe what you're saying, and what you've seen just sounds absolutely terrifying and out of this world, and we believe that, and yourself, there's so many people sort of connected with what you've shared, then why should we not believe that this thing that's come from the outer nowhere cannot connect with you through the mind as it's done in the dream state, should we say? How does that make you feel when you're alone, when you're laid in bed and you've got these things running through your mind? Must be a little bit frightening.
It is. It's disturbing. In fact, that night I never fell back to sleep. When I woke up, I was soaking wet. My dog was on my legs, whimpering, looking at me, which, animals, they always seem to know when something's going on different. She had gotten up. She's never downstairs at 3-4 in the morning. That's when this took place. And I mean, when I say I was soaked, I had sweat dripping from my face when I woke up. I was horrified. I usually at night, up till this happened a few months ago, I used to always keep, in fact, in the picture to my right, which is my left, as you could see it, the drapes, that's the big bay window to my outdoor backyard that the woods are. At night, I used to keep them open. I would love to look outside at night and see. I don't do that anymore. I keep them closed. I fully expect sometime to see those orange amber eyes.
Yeah, I was just going to say, imagine those eyes are going to be looking back at you. Yeah,
it's bothered me. It's stuck with me. I think about it regularly. It was so ultra real, and I cannot tell you the amount of people who have reached out to me in the hundreds, who have all said to me that themselves, hey, you don't have to believe me. I'm sensitive myself. If you would like to know a little more about what happened to you, I'd be happy to. They give me their credentials, and some of them have some engaging credentials that I spoke to them. They said, that wasn't a dream, man. They said that thing reached out to you. I'm going to be going down to the LBL, to the Land Between the Lakes, which is some incredible events have happened. I'm going to be brought into the Brotherhood of the Wolf by Barton Nunley in the spring, and Martin Groves is part of that. He'll be there, and Daryl Denton and Larry Joe Fisher, and those things frequent that area. And
we've made Wolflands, Matt, and we've been in locations where people have seen these incredible, terrifying beasts, for want of a better word. But I'm quite jealous, and I'm sure Les would be, and people like Chris Turner, our other friend, who are avidly into this. I mean, Les set off on the journey doing the documentary with me, but after interviewing these witnesses, I think he said, just come away. It's hard to deny that they have not seen and experienced what they've seen and what they claim to have experienced. And when you sit in ground zero in the locations where they've seen them, and you listen to them relaying the stories, there's something to it. It really is. I mean, we might be foolhardy actually going into these locations. Be careful what you wish for, kind of thing. But it doesn't stop us doing it. It's like yourself. You're going to go to these locations. What are you going to as much or as little detail as you like with this one? Because it might be personal. But what does your wife think? As you're getting more and more, as you're getting further down the rabbit hole. We know you've been there due to your own experience, but now you're interacting with other people who've been there, other people who want to take you back there. What does she think?
I believe that all of our stories were written in stone before time began by whatever creator there is.
Superb. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, that creator chooses some of us, for whatever purpose, to have a sensitivity or a more openness, or are touched for whatever. I don't know why, but some of us, and I actually feel bad some people don't get to experience those things, because it really opens the mind. Now, what happened to me when I was 14 has negatively impacted all 4 of our lives. 2 are gone, and it really affected them in a horrible manner. But I'm also happy that I know that this world exists, and it's opened my mind to things. I've had things happen to me, little things when I was younger. For instance, when I was really young, me and my little brother used to like to go into my mom and dad's room on their big giant king size bed and play with Hot Wheels cars. Well, we were in there one summer day, because each room, it was an old house, had those window air conditioner units, so you had to keep the doors closed. And somebody was banging on the door. Now, the only other person home was my mom, so we thought it was my mom. I opened the door and there's no one there. You look, and all the other doors to every bedroom are closed, so closed it. And then as I closed it, bam, like somebody had hit it. So much scared me that I put my hands on the door, and my little brother ran up and he had his hands on the door. And it was like somebody was trying to get into the room, and we started screaming. Now, I had just remembered this recently because someone asked me, had you had other things happen? And I've been thinking, what else has happened to me? And we were screaming. My mother came up and we caught a whooping from her. She thought we were the ones doing it. And we, even though we got spanked, we were happy she was there. And we told her, Mom, something was trying to get into the door. She didn't believe us. That's the only paranormal thing that ever happened at that house. But there has been many things through the years that have gone on. And the sensitivity, the older I've gotten, has gotten stronger. And especially as people have been reaching out to me more. My wife, who I said is beyond skeptical of things, will even tell you, when it comes to me, I freak my family out, because I notice, and what you just touched on, walking into a bar and knowing each person, where they're coming from, and just by a feeling who is negative and who I'd like to start a chat with. I have always been able to notice extreme detail, things other people don't. I don't stare at my phone. I'm always looking up. I'm people watching. I look at the sky. I look around. My wife always fondly says, she's like, you're one of those guys that do people that just stop and smell the roses. And that's what I recommend to people. If maybe you really want to have something happen, do that.
And maybe there's a little bit of research that we could all learn from, Matt. You know, and you may have said it inadvertently, but maybe within the research, we could all be looking for the I know people look for the type of person who's had the experience, but how you've just described it, then you've been the kind of person that's sort of reading people. It'd be interesting during a cryptid type experience to find out what that witness is like in life in general, when he goes into a bar, questions that may not always be asked. Like I've just said to you, like, you know, I bet you read people or that words to that effect, and you echoed it. 100%. It'd be interesting to find out if there's a certain type, you know, just like with David Paulides sort of profiles people, you know, and with the missing, it'd be interesting to find out if there's a certain type, a trait that are more likely to have this kind of experience than others. And I think there's a kind of little bit of avenue for a bit of research there as well.
I agree 100%. That is phenomenal that you said that, and I agree. And again, I just want to say to all of your viewers out there, you know, if you really would like to have something happen to you, slow down, look around. Stop looking at your phone all the time.
Yeah.
Pay attention. Listen. Go to places that there aren't a lot of people around, and get your frame of mind in a relaxed, positive state, and just try and talk through and say, hey, I'm here. I'd like to meet you. Or, you know, you might think it sounds silly. I did it and it happened. So
this is all about channeling the thought, Matt, and the actual intent that's coming through. I mean, you know, I don't advocate the use of the Ouija board, but
no, me either.
But my point will be, it'll make sense in a moment. The point, when the people get round it and they sort of looking for some kind of experience, there's a channeled thought, and there's almost an end result that they know ultimately is going to come back to them, and it's never usually good. But then we've got the people employing the CE5 to try and summon the UFO, Stephen Greer type phenomena, and he's not the phenomena, but you know what I'm talking about, the CE5, where groups of people try and summon the UFOs. But it's all about channeling into. It's all about the focus of the mind and the intent. And you've gone into these locations with good intent, and it sounds to me like you've got the good back. But you know, Matt, because we've literally probably got 8 or 9 minutes left, aside from the experience when you were 14 years old, if you could experience one thing out of, you might say two, out of the full spectrum of the unexplained phenomena, ghosts, poltergeist, UFOs, more cryptid sightings, what would it be? What would give Matt the biggest buzz?
You know, the one thing that has happened to me that I would have always wanted and did was when I lost my leg last April. I had fallen a couple times, like anyone would. You lose a limb, you don't know how to move around, and I fell 3 times, but twice I fell directly straight down on that limb that had been taken. I actually caused some of the sutures to come undone, and I had a hole about that big that had formed. Long story short, I had went to the hospital. I was told by my home health care nurse, who had sent a picture to my surgeon. They said, tell him to go immediately. Something bad can happen. I went, I sat there for 5 hours. Didn't see anybody. I told my wife, come pick me up. On my way home, the artery blew in my leg, and I bled out over 3 pints of blood in my wife's car in front of my 14-year-old daughter and my wife. And I died with people around me. Paramedics got there, threw me in the ambulance. My heart stopped for over 90 seconds, and I had a near-death experience, and I saw my mother and father. And I'm telling you, I hear the scientists and the doctors saying it's a dump of dopamine and other chemicals in the brain that makes this happen. I saw my mom and dad. My dad's been gone for 11 years. He died of pancreatic cancer. My mother died 4 years ago last week from complications from lupus. They were there. My mother told me, you can't stay here. It's not your time. She touched my face. I woke up. I was on the operating table, ready for them to save my life, which they did. Now, that was the top one for me, to see my mom and dad again, and it happened. If I were to pick something else, I would really think it would be badass if I was visited by some type of alien being, landed in somewhere, and came out and conversed with me and showed me something incredible. We've heard some of the other incredible stories where, just a few that I've bought, where people were visited by beings and they brought them in their ships and stuff. And that would be, for me, that would be the most mind-bendingly ultimate experience.
Wow. Honestly, that were incredible. And I'll tell you something, Matt, and it's not just because you sat in front of me. And I think other people listening to the first part of the answers that you've just given me, the two, you know how to send a shiver and a rush of emotion through a person, because I felt it, and I really did feel that, Matt. And I thank you for the honesty that you know with which you shared that with us. Thank you. So
one other thing, Paul, real quick.
Yeah, we're not winding up yet because I want to know about the channel. But yeah, please do.
I just wanted to say real quick to everybody, because you touched on something that I believe very powerfully in, and that's when a group of people have the same mindset, and when they set to something. There is moments when people are sick or dying or something horrible is happening, that you ask large mass groups of people in churches and whatnot to pray for people, and then something wonderful happens and they're saved. I have witnessed that happen multiple times. My one sister's husband is a pastor in Columbus, Ohio. And I've had multiple friends. Martin Groves almost died after that conference that you were supposed to go to. I asked her to ask her husband to have the congregation pray. It's a very large congregation. Daryl Denton, his father was dying, and asked them, and that, I'm not saying that's exactly why he made it, but it helped. And Nellie Turner, Josh Turner's wife, is not doing real well right now, and they're praying for him, as well as Martin Groves. Unfortunately, his son Willie is not doing well. So I fully believe, because I've seen it work, when large mass groups of people pray to whatever higher power there is and they believe in, to please help these people with whatever's going on, that it works. I believe it. So it can also work in the negative.
I would echo that, and I hope Les doesn't get mad with me, because I just want to go over just a few more minutes, because I've got to tell you something now, and then I want to know about where people want to know about where they can contact you, where they can see your YouTube channel. But I've just got to share this. I'll try and condense it, because you've been quite personal and graphic. And when my dad was ill in hospital, 2006, he had a disease called bronchial ectasis, and the lungs were absolutely shot, and he's literally out of it. The doctors rang us in the early hours of the morning and said to me and my mum, I went and picked her up, this is your father's time. And we went, and I sat in a single room, me at one side of the bed, mum at other, little light at the side of me, and I'm praying for my dad to pass away, because he was suffering. Not because he was suffering, and he's out of it. And at this stage, he's on a syringe drive with morphine and things, and he's out of it. And they'd already asked us if they want us to increase the morphine, and my mum wouldn't let him, so he would stop suffering. And I'm praying, and I just caught the glimpse of something, and I wrote about it in Night People, of something there, and I looked, and it had gone. And I thought, what was that? And it's deep in early hours at morning, and I'm sort of thinking, God, please let this end. Please let this end. And then I saw it again. And I just saw like little bars, and I knew what I thought I'd seen, but my mum's going other side of bed, and his oxygen levels started to pick up, and he pulled through, and the doctors came in, I don't know, sometime later, and they said, you can go home, he's going to be okay. We were only fighting off terribly what the inevitable. However, Matt, is the one, she stayed at our house that night. Got her up a bit later. I said, had a bit of breakfast. I said, we'll go see my dad in a bit. Like, we'll go see him. Yeah. But it were on my mind. I said, last night in early hours, I said, and I saw you looking across at something, looking at me. She said, oh yeah, you'll never believe it, Paul. I said, what? She said, I could see wings, like wings. And I immediately thought of an angel. And Matt, honestly, and I would not have shared that for if not you saying that. And this is us talking to Matt. So I'm sorry for stealing a little bit there.
No, don't. I'm so honored. That's so.
Thank you.
So oh my God, thank you.
So, you were so sincere with what you were speaking about. I just felt like I had to share that.
I'm so grateful. Thank you.
We'll probably run over a few minutes, but now I want Truth Proof listeners and the people watching this. Hopefully, we get new listeners to hear where they can find out more about Matt Emch, please.
Yeah, please. If you go to YouTube, you can go to Planet 412. If you just type that in, Planet 412. Before, it didn't bring it up when I first started because there were others, but now it comes up immediately. The Gmail address is, you spell it out, PLANET. Planet, FOURTWELVE. I tried to get the 412, but it was taken. But if you just go to YouTube, Planet 412, my channel will pop up. It's a blue, creepy looking little symbol with a couple cryptids and a UFO. And please go and subscribe and hit that like button on everything. Right now, I've got 4 or 5 videos up, 4 shorts. I released 3 this past week. And, I do narrations of stories from different states. I'll do your neck of the woods as well. In fact, if anybody wants to send me their stories that they would like me to read, I would love to put together what I usually do is an hour's worth of, say, a state, or I'd like to do like the UK or elsewhere. I need a number of stories to make an hour. Send them to me. I'll read them. I'll say your name on there. And I would love to have more people from other countries to join me. It would be an honor.
Well, I'm sure there'll be no shortage of takers on for that offer. And I'm sure that Les, when he listens to this, will probably we'll put the links up and the images, I would hope, that you're going to send to us, Matt. So on behalf of myself and Les from Truth Proof, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. It's always an honor, sir.
Thank you.